Historical Origins of Just War Theory, Section 2. Welcome back, everyone. In our previous lecture, we introduced just war theory as an ethical framework that seeks to limit the devastation of war by setting moral boundaries. Today we turn to its historical origins. Just war theory did not emerge out of nowhere. It has roots in many cultures and religious traditions, stretching from ancient China and India to the Hebrew Bible, and eventually taking a distinct shape in Christian thought, especially through the work of St. Augustine in the 5th century. Ancient traditions of just war, China. In early Chinese philosophy, thinkers like Laozi, Laozi, the founder of Taoism, already questioned war. Laozi urged rulers to avoid violence and conquest, teaching that true strength comes from harmony and humility. War could never be glorious. At best, it was a tragic necessity. In India, texts like the Book of Manu, part of the Dharma Shastra tradition, outlined rules of conduct for rulers and warriors. These included restrictions on whom to fight, how to treat enemies, and the protection of civilians and property. Here we see the beginnings of a concern with rules of warfare, not simply the justification of war itself. Hebrew Bible. The Hebrew Bible also contains early examples. In Deuteronomy 20, for instance, rules are given for conducting war. Offer peace before attacking a city, spare fruit-bearing trees, and impose limits on violence. While the Bible often portrays God as a warrior, it also insists that war must be governed by divine law, not human greed. Across these traditions, the same theme emerges. War is sometimes unavoidable, but it must be restrained by justice. Christian contributions. Augustine of Hippo, 354-430 CE. The most influential figure in shaping just war theory in the Christian West was St. Augustine. Living in the late Roman Empire, Augustine faced a crucial challenge. How could Christians who followed a non-violent Messiah reconcile their faith with the realities of political life and war? Augustine's key ideas. 2 cities. Augustine taught that humanity is divided between the city of God and the city of man. The city of God lives in perfect justice and peace, but the city of man, which includes earthly governments, is tainted by sin. No earthly state can ever be fully just. Justice as love, serving God. For Augustine, justice meant rightly ordered love directed toward God and neighbor. War could never be good in itself, but it could serve justice if motivated by the right love. War as a coping mechanism. Since earthly states are flawed, rulers may sometimes need to use war as a tragic necessity to restrain evil and restore peace. War and authority. Augustine argued that only a sovereign ruler could declare war. Private violence was forbidden. War must be fought not for revenge or conquest, but to correct wrongdoing and protect the innocent. Even then, the goal of war must always be peace. Jesus and nonviolence. Augustine also reinterpreted Jesus' teaching of turn the other cheek. For Augustine, this was about personal disposition, not necessarily about politics. As individuals, Christians should forgive and endure suffering, but rulers acting on behalf of justice might sometimes be required to use force. This was a radical shift from the pacifism of the early church. Before Constantine, many Christians refused military service, but after Christianity became tied to the Roman Empire, Augustine gave theological justification for war under limited, controlled circumstances. Why Augustine matters. Augustine's work laid the foundation for all later Christian reflection on just war. While his views were not systematic, they introduced the essential questions. Who can declare war? For what reasons is war justified? What limits must be observed in waging war? Later thinkers like Thomas Aquinas would build on Augustine, but his legacy is clear. He gave Christians a way to navigate the tension between Jesus' call to peace and the realities of political responsibility. Closing transition. So, in this section, we've seen that just war theory has deep roots, from Laozi in China, to the Book of Manu in India, to Deuteronomy in the Hebrew Bible, and finally to Augustine in the Christian West. Each of these traditions agreed on one point: war must never be unlimited, it must be governed by justice. In our next lecture, we'll examine the first of the 2 main branches of just war theory, jus ad bellum, or the conditions that must be met for a war to be considered just in the first place.